On the seventh day of Christmas, my Brigid brought to me a fire to carry me through all of the dark nights and all of the other things that are all around us in this time of year. Now, don't think that we've talked about this before. We have talked about Brigid's Forge, and if you haven't listened to that episode, and based off our listenership numbers, you probably didn't, so go back and listen to that one. It's a really good one. Today, we're going to be talking about Brigid's Flame, what it both symbolizes for us, and how it can be a tool to help us through these interesting times.
A flame.
So grab yourself a seat by the forge. We're going to have a nice discussion today as we track this fire down creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christo-pagan druid and priest of Brigid. Not that that's going to have anything to do with this episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian, and I am the swans a swimming. Who's that? Or I bring you fire.
Which most people have never heard the song that's actually from, because that's a cut from an older song. But I've just
Whole other conversation.
whole other thing. Yeah, as you've probably noticed if you listen to this podcast for any period of time, I always introduce myself as a priest of Brigid because I have in fact taken my priesthood vows to Brigid. She occupies a lot of my thought, a lot of my time, and a lot of my work. The two aspects I tend to interact with most are Brigid's Flame and Brigid's Healing Water. We've talked about the Forge. Again, if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend that you go back into the archive and check it out, because that's not exactly what we're going to be talking about today, but it is a related concept. But I think the flame doesn't get some of the focus that it deserves. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do original Christo-pagan and druid content 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And throughout the 12 days of Christmas, we're doing a new episode every day. And you don't want to miss anything that we're doing, because we have a lot of interesting topics on the calendar. All right, let's just get into it. Brigid is a goddess of the forge. She's not the goddess of the forge. That's Govinda. He is kind of the craftsman deity. I am not a big fan of the comparative pantheon thing. He's not the Hephaestus of the Tua. He's not the Vulcan of the Irish deities. He very much his own thing. But Brigid's in there too. I look at Brigid's fire and her relationship to the forge on so many different levels. But the one that I've really been connecting to a lot lately is her relationship to the forge. To me, is this: I can do what I set my mind to. Because one of the stories of how she ended up becoming this goddess of craftsmen, this goddess of the forge, is she just walked by the blacksmith and was like, oh, that looks interesting. Teach me how to do this. And just kind of walked in and set her mind to it and decided, this is the thing I'm going to learn how to do. This is the thing I'm going to do. And did it. There's this determined self at the heart of this idea that she just decided, I'm going to do this.
The image of the fire is so profound, because it is that transitioning a thing into this potential energy that can be used in so many ways to become another thing. Because the way that's what fire is, this chemical process where wood or some other combustible material is transformed into a more pure energy state. You can then take that and you can excite other molecules if you want to reshape them, which is a forge process where you're heating the metal, then pounding it out into a new shape and hardening it. Or it could just be turning it into warmth, where you're converting cold and dark into light and warm, which is very relevant during this time of year when we're in our colder, darker nights. We're all about that potential energy.
Brigid's nature as a fire goddess is so unpindownable. I don't know a better way of saying it, because she's also a goddess of the healing spring. Irish mythology, if you're not familiar with it, I recommend that you get familiar with it. Irish and Welsh mythology are some of the most rich and beautiful stories in the world, and it's a colonial tragedy that they are not as well known as the Greco-Roman stories, or even better known than the Greco-Roman stories. But the Irish deities aren't pigeonholable. Brigid is not Vesta. She's not Hestia, but she is goddess of the hearth. She's not Hephaestus, but she is goddess of the forge. She's not, in her own pantheon, she's not Dien Kect, but she's a goddess of healing. She's not Arid, she's a goddess of healing, though, right? She has all of these qualities about her. She's the protector of the herd. She's the protector of domesticated animals. She has this almost St. Francis of Assisi quality to her where she takes care of the animals that we take care of, right? Many of her stories involve making beer or milk or cheese or what have you. This very domestic goddess, but also one who's there on the battlefield and out there in the war. She doesn't recede into the background, right? That to me is the core of Brigid's flame. It is the candlelight that gets you through the dark night. It is the hearth fire that cooks your food. It is the fireplace that gets you through the cold night. It is the heat of the forge that smelts the metal, that heats the crucible, that removes the impurities from things and helps you forge the tools that you need to go forward. It is all of these things. It is one fire. I would also say because of her connection with death, because all of her children die horribly in the stories. And because Irish mythology was collected in such a sad state over the years, 3 of her sons, we don't even know if they're her sons, because those 3 individuals are attributed to children of Brigid, children of the Morrigan, and children of Danu, which is where all the questions come in of, are these the same? How do these relate to each other and all that? But because of her connection to death and to keening and to the hearth fire and everything, I almost feel like her flame is also that warmth of the human body. This fire inside of all of us. You can see this in, again, her ambition. Oh, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. And she just does.
With that fire of inspiration, that fire of creativity.
It is the fire that we really need right now. It's the fire that we desperately need to guide us through. As we were talking about in an earlier episode about the myths of Christmas, that she was the midwife at the birth of Christ, and that story that we get of the phoenixes lighting on that night, I can't help but in my own mind associate her with that phoenix fire, right?
Light a fire under his butt. Get him moving. Motivation.
And I feel like that is my working relationship with Brigid is, oh, no, here's the thing to do. No, here's the thing to do. No, here's the thing to do. She's very much a let's get it done. Not in a hurried way, not in a haphazard way, but in a, no, this, chop, we have work to do. Let's go get stuff done. But also with that nurturing side of, as somebody with chronic illness and chronic pain and whatnot, understanding of, okay, so today we're going to go to the spring, we're going to get healed and recuperated and set up, and then we're going to go right back into that forge as soon as you're ready. We get back to work. There's work to do. When I say that, like, her fire is the fire that we need right now, that balanced approach of, yeah, sometimes you need to go to the healing spring. And that takes a certain fire of inspiration to get you there sometimes. Because it's easy for us to get bogged down in what we're doing and not get to the point until it's too late of realizing I'm just exhausted, I'm just worn down, I'm just burnt out.
Yeah, because that's a fire that was allowed to rage too hot, too much for too long, and it became destructive.
So there's an old tradition that goes along with a lot of the Brigid prayers of, love this word, smooring the fire. And this was a way to keep the embers hot overnight so that you didn't have to keep getting up and tending the flame. I grew up in a house with wood stoves, and wood fires were our only source of heating. And there was always that learning, how much wood does this stove need to get through the night so we don't wake up freezing because the fire went out. You can't burn too hot because that could be dangerous, but it can't go out or it's going to be dangerous. Learning to seek out and find that balance. In the olden days, back in Ireland and Scotland and what have you, up in the Hebrides, they would take the coals at the end of the night and they would put a piece of peat in there because it burns hot but slow. And then they'd take the ashes and they would cover it up. So they would just kind of a little bundle of fire. So in the morning when they got there, They could open it up and the coals would still be hot and put the kindling in and get the fire, bring the fire back in the morning. This was such an important thing because getting a fire to start in a world before matches. Matches are very new. In a world before matches, it's a lot of work. You don't want to have to start a fire if you don't have to. You want to keep the fire alive. So this loving care had rituals and prayers where you're wrapping the peat in the ashes to keep the embers going all night so that when you get up in the morning, there's a fire in the hearth waiting for you. Embers in the hearth so that you can get the fire going again. That loving care of the fire is something that we don't talk about enough when we're talking about fire imagery. We don't talk about the smooring the fire, of taking that time and care to make sure the embers don't go out when we're not there to tend the flame.
This was something that I was fortunate enough in my youth growing up to also have at fireplace. And my meditations on the Yule log. In our very magical scientific approach to it, it was finding that log that was just the right circumference, learning that it had to be round because the flat edges burned differently from a round one. The density of the log, the circumference of the log had to be a perfectly round log to burn just right to allow the right amount of burning throughout the night. So as the flames penetrated in further, it didn't burn it all up, but it also didn't burn too hot to make it ridiculously hot in the room. It was an interesting meditation on all of that and on flame and how it reacts differently to surface area, to where it is, because it always wants to burn up. That burned completely differently.
These are all lessons that we need to learn in our lives. We have a lot of metaphors for how we harm ourselves with fire. We burn the candle from both ends. We burn out. We flame out.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to understand the dangers associated with the flames and with fire because they can easily get out of control. You have to be mindful around it. But because we have separated ourselves through the various means that we have of heating our houses these days, that we're not interacting with flame on that regular basis, we've not only lost the respect for it, I would say healthy fear of it, but also the care and concern for it.
It's very much like a creature. Back to living in right relationship with the flame is just yet another aspect of our lives that we should have. It needs to be fed. It needs to breathe. It can get out of hand if not taught correctly. If you're not teaching it how to live in right relationship with its environment, that's that raging fire. You didn't raise it right.
And modern technology has cheapened it. We got matches and lighters, and you can buy blowtorches at most stores because you got to be able to brûler. That is handy, but it disconnects us from the work. So when we use this fire imagery for the flame of inspiration, we almost look at the flame of inspiration like a shooting star. It's something that just goes whoosh through the heavens, and we go, we behold its beauty.
And quickly make a wish.
Yeah. What I've been learning in my journey with Brigid is that flame of inspiration is a spark that we have to blow on, that we have to put care and concern and get to grow and burn, putting the kindling in, and then the smaller sticks, and then the bigger sticks, and up to the logs so that the fire is just burning. Because when that fire goes out, and it can and does go out because we either let it burn too hot and it just consumes all the wood and all the embers are gone before we try to put the next log on, or we neglect it and forget to put more wood onto the flame. And by the time we get back, it's cold and we have to start all over again. And like I said, starting a fire is hard. Inspiration doesn't have matches or blowtorches or lighters. There's no shortcut for inspiration. But also, it's something that can be tended and kept. And that really is the art of life. That's the art of everything that we're doing, is learning to keep all of these different flames alive. Or maybe realizing that they're one flame. This is an analogy that I struggle with because I think hope is a flame. I think faith is a flame. I think inspiration is a flame. I go back and forth over whether they're the same flame, as in like one hearth fire that we're trying to keep lit, or is like faith a candle, is hope a lamp, is inspiration a fort, you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I don't.
For me, I think of the intensity of the fire, because you have fire that, like the yellow fire burning at one intensity versus a white fire burning at a whole other intensity. Blue flame is burning at a different intensity. And so I think of it more, and they're all the same flame, yet it's all different because it deals with more the intensity. And of course, when you're dealing with the intensity now, you're also talking about its function and purpose in life.
They're all interconnected. You can light hope from faith and faith from hope. And you can light inspiration from them as well, which is why I tend to think of them like the candle, the lantern, and the hearth as like three places that we keep the fire burning rather than...
I got the idea more from a torch, because when you first start that torch, it's all open, and then you start turning the knob and you focus that flame in, and it changes in intensity.
But I think that that's something we're all struggling with right now because various events, and I'm not going to start listing them because, again, we would be here all day, feel like somebody threw water. Some events feel like a flood is coming in to drown that fire out. And our real struggle is finding those ways to keep it burning, to keep it lit, to keep it going. A lot of the imagery in my mind for this has been related to the Pixar movie Elemental, where I don't want to give spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it's such an adorable movie. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it. One of the major plot points is about keeping a sacred fire going. And the more I think about what's going on right now, with how I feel about what's going on in Germany and all around the world, I told myself I wasn't going to start naming places, but it's hard sometimes. That flood water is coming in. And sometimes you need to move that fire into a hurricane lamp, with a nice lantern to help keep it dry and protected and safe. And I don't feel like we as a society, it kind of goes to some of what we were talking about yesterday with the cycles and everything. I don't think we as a society are good at helping people realize the tools that we have to do that, because they come across as platitudes. If I say you got to keep the fire of faith going or keep the fires of hope burning, that sounds like a platitude, and it's really not. Because what that means is you have to keep finding things to feed that hope. Because if you're not feeding that hope, like any flame, it's going to die out. It's an active, not a passive thing. But again, I think it's because we've divorced ourselves from that intimate relationship with fire that it sounds like a passive platitude.
Yeah, I think it's so true. And especially the forgetting part. For myself, a while back, I had a profound moment, I guess, a moment of enlightenment, you could say.
An epiphany.
An epiphany. I was reminded that joy is a gift. It is not an emotion. So it is not a feeling. It is actually a gift from God. And it's a gift that is freely given. All you have to do is ask. Joy is that first spark of the torch. It's that first flame. It's the one that burns softest, which is why it's so often forgotten. And so, of course, being challenged and being who I am, I had to prove it. I was in a very grumpy day, and I went, okay, fine, asking for joy. Suddenly had a wave of joy come over me, and I was like, wow. And then I lost it later in the day because I forgot about it, and then I went, okay, asking for joy. Boom, joy again. And I was like, that's profound. So at a moment where I was deeply sad, I was asked for joy. It was a very awkward experience. I don't recommend most doing this to themselves because I was both sad and joyful at the same time because I want to test the emotional challenge part of it. But I found that joy, once you have that joy, which is easy because there's actually an eternal flame that you can turn to and put your starter stick into and get your starter flame. That's the joy. You can then focus that into hope. That's the next step up. The flame is now burning a little more intensely and you have that hope. That's where you start getting that drive. So joy focused into hope, that then you can focus into faith. And that's that next step up. Super hot flame that's burning that you can use to literally cut through things.
I talk about this a lot because I think we misunderstand that first in Hebrews. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the essence of things not seen. And too many people take that to mean that faith is just believing without evidence. And to me, that's not what that is saying. Faith, one, is that thing that convinces you when you get hit by the riptide that you can swim back to shore. Faith is that thing that tells you that no matter how bad things sound or feel right now, there is a future. What that looks like may be uncertain, but there is something there, and to strive and work towards it. Faith is that I don't know if I can finish this marathon, but I'm going to take the next step anyway. And that's what that phrase means to me. Faith is a lamp that lights our way, not because it tells us what to believe, but it helps us to see what we're looking for. And you can see this. I'm a big fan of watching Flat Earth debunker videos and stuff just because there's something about watching people struggle with logic that I feel helps hone my own logic skills. And what you see over and over and over again is they're talking about how strong their faith is, which is why they don't believe that the earth is round, right? They believe the earth is flat because their faith is so strong. And it's actually the other way around. They don't have faith in any of the tools, the technology, the institutions that may have told them otherwise. It's actually a profound lack of faith that gets masked by another faith that they're trying to supersede over. I'm thinking about this a lot lately because an American pastor just ran what he's calling the final experiment, where he took several flat earthers and several debunkers down to Antarctica to watch the 24-hour sun, as the sun never sets. This is important because on a flat earth model, and this way of thinking, and this way of faith, there can't be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. The current models, the way that they view the universe, the sun, there's no way for you to be able to see the sun for 24 hours in the southern hemisphere. That's not possible. So he took them down there so that they could see. And they set up webcams, had the camera on a timed tripod to follow the sun so you could watch the sun. Like it's riding a roller coaster. Go up and down and up and down as it's moving across the sky, but never, ever dipping below the horizon. And what you're watching people do is struggle with their faith. Not their faith in a flat earth, but their faith in what their own eyes has shown them. The faith in what they're hearing from these other people. Because the real thing here is not a lack of evidence. We often think that people believe ridiculous things because they don't understand the evidence. If I just explain the evidence, this is that rationalism that we got from the Enlightenment that I'm always critiquing, right? If I can just show you the facts, right? Well, what you're missing in that is that these people don't believe in a flat earth because they don't understand the facts. In fact, many of them have written these elaborate theories to try to explain the facts away. They know what the facts are. They just don't believe them. And this is true in a lot of different fields, not just flat earth, but I feel like it's safer to talk about flat earth because I don't think many of the people listening to me ascribe to that point of view. So it doesn't feel like we're challenging anybody's personal pet beliefs. But the reason they're attached to flat earth is it tells them you're living in the center of the universe. You are important. You matter. The whole of the universe revolves around us. We're at the center. We're on stable, solid ground, firm and immovable, and at the center of the universe. And that's what they're holding on to. That's what they need. Because when they let go of that idea, if you're on an earth that's spinning, to them, that means the earth isn't solid beneath them because it's turning. It's not only spinning on its axis, but it's spinning around the sun. And the sun itself is spinning around the galaxy, and the galaxy is spinning around the supercluster. And our supercluster is spinning around in the local group, and on and on and on and on. Everything's moving and it's chaos, and it's no. Solid, stable ground. That's what they're looking for. And that's what so many of us are looking for. And until you have that little bit of light, this is where you have to bring that fire of faith in, because you have to look to see what is actually lighting up here. Where's the flame burning? This is why the arguments just go back and forth. Is this experiment going to actually finally debunk the flat earth theory? No. Maybe for the people who went down there, because they've seen it with their own eyes, right?
Yeah.
They'll probably concoct a theory to explain how this could happen. I'm actually expecting to see new map projections where the southern hemisphere is the center of the map. I've already seen people starting to say, well, see, the thing is, and already trying to find ways to debunk everything. Most of our lives are not rational projects. We have to see what lights up. They need to have firm ground underneath them. And that's what they're missing. That's what so many of these people are holding on to. That's true with flat earth as it is with most conspiracy theories, most nationalisms, most whatevers. They're needing that certainty we talked about yesterday. And so for people like me who are willing to have certainty in the fire, it's going to burn up falsehood. It might even burn me, but I know that that flame is there. That flame is always burning, and it's ever changing. It's going to give different quantities and qualities of light depending on what is fed into it. But that fire is that fire. And I'm okay with that uncertainty. I'm okay with that level of doubt, because that's what that is. Learning to accept this flame imagery is being okay with doubt, uncertainty. Fire is not stable. There's no such thing as a stable fire. There's a sustainable fire, but that's not the same as a stable fire. This fire will always consume and go out unless it's constantly fed somehow. And that's the flame we need to carry into the new year. It's that hope that can't be doused. I feel like all of us need to be finding ways to get phosphorus to throw into our flames so that no matter how much water gets thrown on them, it'll keep burning. That we need to be waterproofing that flame. That we need to be holding on to it, keeping it as precious as we can. And remembering why other people aren't able to carry that flame themselves. Because when you start looking at the roots of these problems, that's where you can find the solutions. And so many of us think that, oh, I can just shine a light over there and you'll see all of the problems. You'd be surprised what people can ignore just to ignore a problem. How long have you driven with your car making a weird knocking noise before you take it in to get checked? How long did you let the brakes kind of squeak and squeal a little bit before you had your pads checked? How long have you kind of felt a little something in your shoe before you realized that there was a hole in there that was making a blister? We can ignore a lot, even when the evidence is literally causing us problems, annoyances, and pain. But as long as we hold on to that light, we hold on to that fire, and we feed it, and we keep it growing, and let it illuminate our path and our way forward, we'll get where we need to go. And that to me is the real secret of Brigid's flight. There's so many events in her life that should have put the fire out. And one of my favorite images related to Brigid is the well, beautiful water with a flame burning in it. Because it is the unextinguishable flame. Because true inspiration can't be put out. You can't blow out the island. I would love to know what you're doing to keep the flame alive. I would love to know what the flame is illuminating for you. Let me know down in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say that you can leave a comment, they won't let us know. You can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. But then head over to creationspast.com and click on chat. And there you can leave a comment, and we will find out about it and be able to comment back. While you're there, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, don't forget we have monthly and annual memberships available there, or you can support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am C.E. Dorset on both. Thank you to everybody who does that. It really does help us keep the lights on, keep the electricity flowing, keep food on the table, and a roof over our heads. Thank you so much to everyone who does that. If you don't have any money right now, don't worry about it. I truly do understand, but if you know anybody who needs to hear any of the things that we've been saying, please share this with them. That helps us out more than you could ever possibly know. And before we go, sweet Brigid, eternal flame burning in the sacred well, inspire us to find the path that we need to walk. Enlighten us so that we may see the truths that we need to see. Burn away all that is in us that needs to go, and cleanse us with your healing fire. Reforge us in your forge so that we may be strong enough to stand against any of the difficulties that are coming our way. Amen.
Amen. And a partridge in a pear tree.